All right, guys, let's get started. We're going to go through notes 4.2 today on finding missing lengths and angles in similar figures. Before your Unit 3 test, we started notes 4.1, and we talked about how similar figures have congruent corresponding angles and proportional corresponding side lengths. So we're going to be using those two pieces of information today to find some missing measurements. So let's take a look at example 1. So in the diagram below, triangle ABC is similar to triangle GHJ. So we've got two parts. Part A is about angles, part B is about side length. So in part A, if measure of angle B equals 30 degrees, let's label that. You should be writing this down, following along with me. And measure of angle J equals 20 degrees, let's label that. We want to fill in the remaining angle measures on the diagram. So to do this, we want to match up the corresponding parts, just like we did with congruent figures. So I know angle B is 30. Angle B has to correspond to angle H in the other triangle because they're both listed second. So I can label angle H as 30 degrees. Same thing with angle J. Angle J is 30. That has to correspond to angle C. Oh, sorry, 20. Angle J is 20. Angle C has to be the same thing, so that has to be 20. And then we know that angle A and angle G have to correspond, so they have to be congruent. And we also know that the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So 30 plus 20 is 50. Subtract that from 180, and we get 130 for angle A and angle G. So make sure that you have those labeled on your diagram. And then let's take a look at B. So B, we want to find the value of x. Here's x. I'm going to circle that. X is labeling BC. If I look up here in my similarity statement, BC, the second two letters, have to correspond to HJ. So I know that x and 16 have to match up. So the first thing I'm going to do is write x over 16 as the first ratio in my proportion. So then I'm going to have this equal to something over something, and I just need two more corresponding side lengths. So I can either use 12 and 8 or 18 and 12. It doesn't matter. They both correspond. I think I'm just going to use 12 and 8. If you want to do 18 and 12 and see if it comes out to be the same as me, you can. So since I started with x in the first triangle, at the top of my ratio, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and start with 12 over 8. So I have x over 16 equals 12 over 8. Then all we have to do is cross multiply. So 8 times x is 8x. That equals 12 times 16. You might want a calculator today, which is 192. And then we're going to divide both sides by 8 to get x equals 24. And that's our answer. So that's the first problem. All right, let's take a look at number 2. So in the diagram, triangle RST is similar to triangle MNP. We need to find the values of x and y. So I'm going to start with x. That is ST. So that has to correspond to NP. So I'm going to circle x and 13. So I'm going to put x over 13 equals. And then I need two more corresponding side lengths. So 38 and y correspond, RT and MP, but if I put those in a ratio, that's going to have two variables, and I won't be able to solve it. So let's take 32 and 16. So x over 13 has to equal 32 over 16. I can tell also that RS and MN correspond because they're the first two letters. So I'm just going to cross multiply, just like I did in number 1. So 16 times x is 16x. 32 times 13 is 416. Divide both sides by 16, and you get x equals 26. Okay, same thing for part B. See if you can beat me. See if you can do this faster than me. So I am going to circle 38 and y since they correspond. And I like to put my variable on the top, so I'm going to do y over 38 equals, I'm going to use the green ones. I'm going to use 16 and 32. Since I started with y in the smaller triangle, I'm going to start with 16 over 32. I have to make sure those corresponding parts match up. So then cross multiply, 32y equals 16 times 38 is 608 divided by 32. We get y equals 19. Give yourself some snaps if you got y equals 19, or if you got that before me. Nice job. Okay, number 3. So first thing, angle measures. If measure of angle L equals 50 degrees, let's label that. You're writing this down. If measure of angle M equals 60 degrees, we're going to fill in the rest of the angle measures. So just like we did in number 1, I can see that L corresponds to P, so P has to be 50, and M corresponds to Q, so Q has to be 60. And again, those are angles in a triangle. They have to add to 180. 50 plus 60 is 110. If we subtract that from 180, we get 70. So those two vertical angles have to be 70. Okay, for the value of x, this one's a little trickier. So if you want to try this on your own, go for it. But look up when I tell you to, because there's one part that's a little tricky. So here are my two x's, x minus 1 and x plus 3. I can see that those correspond, LM and QP, PQ. So I'm going to start with those in my ratio. I'll do x minus 1 over x plus 3. You can do x plus 3 over x minus 1 if you want. Doesn't really matter. And then I want to use the only other two sides I have, 18 and 12. But again, I can check my similarity statement. LN and PN correspond. So since I started with x minus 1, I need to start with 12 on the other side of my ratio. So x minus 1 over x plus 3 equals 12 over 18. You can reduce that if you want, or you can just go ahead and cross multiply straight away. Sorry. But when we cross multiply this one, we have to be careful that we distribute. So I'm going to write this as 18 times the quantity, x minus 1. So I'm going to put x minus 1 in parentheses, equals 12 times the quantity, x plus 3. So if you're speeding ahead of me, look up right now and make sure that you had this written when you cross multiply. Make sure you have those parentheses. If you need to add them, add them. And then we're going to distribute. So we're going to get 18x minus 18. Make sure you have minus 18, not minus 1. And 12x plus 36. Okay, make sure you get that when you cross multiply. From there, we just need to get our x's together on one side and our constants on the other. So I'm going to subtract 12x. So I get 6x minus 18 equals 36. And then if I add 18, sorry, I'm running out of room. I believe that's 54. I get 6x equals 54. And then just divide by 6, we get x equals 9. So give yourself some serious snaps if you got x equals 9 for that one. That one's pretty tricky. If you didn't get x equals 9, take a look up here. Make sure that you have that work copied down. Make sure that you distributed the 18 and the 12 when you cross multiplied. Okay, done with the front, halfway there. All right, let's look at the back. First thing we need to do is name the special segments. We are talking about these lines right here. I can see that they start at a vertex and are perpendicular to the other side. So it has to be an altitude, the height. We need to solve for two separate variables, m and n. So let's start with m. I can see that that corresponds to 5.5. So I'm going to start with m over 5.5. And then if you look at these angles, this angle and this angle are marked, so they correspond, they're congruent. So that means that these sides must also correspond. So 12 and 6. So if I started with m, I need to start with 12 over 6. I'm just going to cross multiply to solve that. So 6m equals 5.5 times 12 is 66. Divide by 6 and we get m equals 11. Same thing for n. Here's n. It corresponds to 8. So maybe I'll start with n over 8. But if I do that, I need to start with another number in that same triangle. So I'm going to start with 6 over 12. If you cross multiply, you get 12n equals 48. Divide by 12, n equals 4. All right, sorry guys, my phone is not happy with storage, so these videos might be a little bit choppy. I'm going to try and finish up part B. So we have m and m plus 4 matched up, so I'm going to put m over m plus 4. And then 10 and 15 must also correspond, so that's got to equal 10 over 15. So we'll cross multiply, make sure we distribute. So 15m equals 10m plus 40. When we subtract 10m from both sides, we get 5m equals 40. So m equals 8. Okay? Not too bad. I'm going to skip over number 5 just for time. There's already a diagram there. Just set up a proportion. Let's just sketch ourselves a diagram for number 8. So there is a flagpole that casts a 20-foot shadow. Shadows are on the ground. At the same time, Umberto, he's 6 feet tall. Okay, he is casting a 5-foot shadow. There's his shadow. 5 feet. Oops. We want to know the height of the flagpole. Let's put an X there. So these both make similar triangles because they're both formed by the sun at the same time. So I'm going to do something like x over 6 equals 20 over 5. Cross multiply 5x equals 120. When you divide that, 120 divided by 5, you get 24 feet tall. Okay, so that's it for these notes. Give that classwork a try. I think you guys are totally ready to do this. I should be able to have this video on the website if you need to watch it again later. Be good. I'll see you soon.